world of the Ice Age stretches before us, vast and silent, cloaked in white and shadow. Imagine a time when the earth wore a frozen crown, glaciers inching across continents, rivers held in icy chains, and nights lingered long beneath a quiet, star-strewn sky. What was it like when ice ruled the land? What stories lie hidden beneath layers of snow and frozen soil, waiting for patient eyes to uncover them? The wind itself seems different here, sharper, colder, carrying the whisper of time. It slips through skeletal forests, bends fragile branches, and scours the plains where herds of ancient beasts once roamed. Their footprints, etched into snow now hardened into ice, tell stories that no tongue ever spoke. Have you ever wondered what it feels like to follow the echo of such lives? To trace their journeys without disturbing the fragile silence they left behind? Auroras shimmer overhead, painting the sky with fleeting curtains of green and violet. The light moves like breath, slow and deliberate, as if the heavens themselves are exhaling the history of a frozen world. Beneath this ethereal glow, the land is both beautiful and unforgiving. Mountains stand jagged, glaciers creep forward like patient giants, and rivers, trapped in ice, wait centuries to flow again. The air tastes of frost, and every step through this landscape is a meditation, a gentle reminder of how small and fleeting our own presence is against the vastness of time. Time itself seems different here. Days pass under pale, cold sun. Weeks melt into months as snow piles upon snow, and yet, in the rhythm of glaciers advancing and retreating, there is a strange permanence. Each movement, imperceptibly slow, shapes the land, carving valleys, grinding stone, leaving traces that only the patient or the observant might recognize. What secrets does such a slow, deliberate world hold? What lives were carried along and shaped by it, fading quietly into the deep folds of memory? Look closer. The ice cracks. A distant roar echoes across a frozen plain. Perhaps it is the song of the planet, a voice older than human imagination. Footprints vanish beneath fresh snow. Delicate frost crystals shimmer and dissolve at dawn. In this stillness, every sound, every subtle motion, becomes a story. The earth itself becomes a narrator, and we are only listeners, straining to hear the faintest hints of life and history. And what of the creatures that shared this world? Mammoths moving like slow shadows across the tundra, saber-toothed cats pacing the ridges, reindeer darting through snowbound forests, each adapted, resilient, fragile. What strategies allowed them to survive? What instincts guided them, and which were lost forever beneath the unrelenting ice? Their lives, fleeting yet monumental, are written in a language of tracks and trails, hidden from view yet never entirely erased. The Ice Age is not merely a chapter in the story of Earth. It is a mirror, reflecting both the fragility and the endurance of life. It is a time of extremes, of beauty and terror intertwined, a landscape that challenges imagination as much as it inspires awe. To step into this frozen world is to step into another rhythm of existence, one measured in centuries rather than hours, in glaciers rather than human breath. As we begin this journey, let us pause and consider the scale of it, the immense, almost unfathomable time, the quiet majesty of ice moving slowly across continents, shaping life, erasing paths, leaving only hints for those who follow. What was it like to live in a world where every day was a negotiation with cold, where survival demanded patience and adaptation, and where the land itself was both shelter and adversary? In the still, reflective silence of the Ice Age, there is room for wonder, room to ask questions that have no easy answers, room to feel the weight of deep time and the gentle pulse of life enduring against unimaginable odds. And as we peer into this frozen past, we may find not only traces of a world long gone, but echoes of ourselves, glimpses of resilience and fragility intertwined, and the quiet, unspoken poetry of existence beneath the ice. To understand the Ice Age, we must first step back, far beyond human memory, beyond cities, beyond civilization itself, to a time when the earth was young in ways we can scarcely imagine. Think of deep time not as numbers on a clock, but as a rhythm, slow and inexorable, a pulse measured in millennia. Glaciers advance like patient, deliberate hands sculpting the face of continents. Rivers are imprisoned in ice, oceans bulge and recede with the weight of snow and frost, and mountains feel the slow, grinding touch of ice sheets inching downward, carving valleys, and reshaping the land with an imperceptible persistence. These are not moments we can witness directly. They are movements that take generations, epochs, eons. Yet the traces remain, encoded in rock layers, fossilized pollen, the delicate banding of ice cores that serve as time capsules of climate, wind, and volcanic ash. Each layer whispers a story of storms long vanished, of forests that once thrived where tundra now dominates, of animals that grazed plains now buried beneath kilometers of ice. In these patterns, Earth preserves memory, though it speaks in a language subtle, demanding patience and attentiveness. The Ice Age itself was not a single event, but a series of glacial cycles, advancing and retreating over tens of thousands of years. Earth's orbit shifted, the tilt of its axis wobbled, sunlight waned and waxed. These celestial rhythms, imperceptible in a human lifetime, dictated the rise and fall of glaciers, the ebb and flow of ecosystems. Life adapted, flourished, sometimes vanished, and adapted again, all under the indifferent guidance of natural forces beyond comprehension. Consider the vast ice sheets of North America, Europe, and Asia, stretching like frozen oceans across continents, thousands of feet thick. Beneath them, the land pressed down, rebounding slowly once freed, shaping rivers, lakes, and mountain ranges in ways that endure to this day. In their cold embrace, they preserved delicate organisms, buried entire forests, and erased the traces of countless lives. Meanwhile, elsewhere, oceans shifted subtly, currents changed course, and the very climate of the planet oscillated between extremes. A slow heartbeat that measured the patience of Earth itself. Flora and fauna evolved in response. Mammoths grazed on sparse tundra grass, their fur thick and insulating. Giant ground sloths ambled cautiously. Small, nimble creatures darted beneath the snow, finding warmth and sustenance in hidden places. Even plants adapted. Hardy shrubs, lichens, and mosses eked out existence on frozen soils. This was a world of resilience and fragility, a place where survival required extraordinary adaptation, and yet could be undone in an instant by the sweep of a glacier or a shift in climate. The scientific story of the Ice Age is also a story of patience. Milankovitch cycles, those subtle changes in Earth's orbit, are invisible in a lifetime yet monumental across millennia. They remind us that even the smallest, most abstract forces can shape the fate of entire ecosystems. Glaciers advance imperceptibly, sculpting landscapes with patient, almost deliberate intent. River valleys are gouged, mountains smoothed, sediment layers formed, rocks are ground to flour, lakes filled with meltwater, all in rhythms too slow to perceive, yet too powerful to deny. Through ice cores, we glimpse the composition of ancient atmospheres, carbon dioxide and methane trapped in crystalline time. We read the temperature of the past in the isotopes of oxygen, reconstructing winters that lasted centuries, summers that were brief whispers of warmth. Through sediment and stone, pollen and fossils, we chart a narrative of change and continuity, of endurance and extinction, and in every layer, the Earth tells us, in its patient, unhurried way, that life is both fleeting and tenacious. As we contemplate these cycles and eons, a sense of humility emerges. The Ice Age was immense, not only in space but in time. Humanity, in its brief history, is but a flicker against these rhythms. Glaciers came and went long before our ancestors learned fire, and they will continue to shape the planet long after we have faded from memory. In this perspective, the Ice Age is both a mirror and a teacher, a reflection of resilience and impermanence, a testament to the power of slow, steady change, and a reminder that the Earth does not hurry, yet accomplishes everything in the fullness of its own time. Through this lens of deep time, science becomes poetry. Rocks and ice, fossils and rivers, wind and auroras, all part of a grand, patient narrative that invites wonder rather than mere understanding. We begin to see not only the mechanics of the Ice Age, but its elegance, its quiet majesty, and the subtle ways it shaped life itself. It is a world vast enough to humble, mysterious enough to inspire, and slow enough to teach patience, a rhythm in which we are invited to listen and imagine. Amid the vast whiteness of the Ice Age, one cannot help but wonder what forms of life endured in the frozen silence. Beyond the mammoths and woolly rhinos, beyond the whispering winds and groaning glaciers, might there have been beings, human or otherwise, carving a fragile existence in the cold? Perhaps small pockets of life, families, tribes, communities, eked out survival in hidden valleys, sheltered by rock overhangs or the hollowed trunks of ancient trees. Their footsteps, fleeting and light, left traces that the ice would eventually erase. But for a moment, they existed, adapting, dreaming, observing the frozen world around them. Imagine firelight flickering against ice walls, the smoke curling upward, disappearing into the gray sky. Tools of bone, stone, or wood glint faintly in that dim glow, crafted not for display, but for survival. Clothing, layered and rough, shields against biting winds, and shelters dug into the snow or earth hold warmth like a secret. Life is measured in small victories, a hunted mammoth feeding a family for weeks, a fire kept alive through a storm, a new shelter constructed before winter deepens. There is resilience here, but fragility, too, for one wrong step, one failed hunt, one illness, and existence is imperiled. But survival is not only physical. Perhaps intelligence took shape in ways subtle and different from our own. Could a lost culture have existed, whose tools were ephemeral, whose language was carried only in whispers, whose art was etched in ice or snow rather than stone? Could minds have evolved that thought differently, mapping patterns in snowdrifts, reading the language of wind, tracking stars for navigation in ways we cannot easily imagine? Intelligence need not mirror humanity. It could have arisen in small, keen-eyed humans, in animals adapted to cold, or in ways entirely alien to our expectations. Octopus-like beings of memory and sensation, tree-dwelling networks, or creatures attuned to ice and shadow, communicating through light, sound, or scent patterns that fade as quickly as they appear. Consider the landscapes themselves as collaborators. Ice caves and frozen rivers might serve as classrooms, playgrounds, and sanctuaries. Snow-carved ridges hide pathways and shelter, while auroras paint the night sky in ephemeral ribbons of green and violet, perhaps marking time, seasons, or spiritual significance. Life forms adapt not only to survive but to perceive, to interpret, to find meaning in the rhythms of wind, snow, and starlight. The landscape is both teacher and canvas, shaping life while being shaped in return. What if some civilizations chose subtlety over grandeur? Perhaps they avoided permanent monuments, knowing that permanence is a fragile illusion in a world of ice and fire. Maybe they thrived in miniature, in intimate communities, in ways that left almost no trace. Their knowledge was preserved in story and song, not in stone, in migration patterns, not in cities. Perhaps their tools were organic, returning quickly to the earth, leaving only the faintest imprint. Their legacy could be written not in ruins, but in the very DNA of the species around them, in the trails of animals, in patterns of rivers and ice, in whispers of memory encoded in survival. And yet, even in their obscurity, there would be moments of wonder, shared meals by firelight, quiet observation of the aurora, the first sparks of creativity flickering in hands and minds. Life was not merely endurance. It was awareness, curiosity, the profound human-like desire to understand, to connect, to leave a mark. However fleeting. In these speculations, we glimpse the extraordinary in the ordinary, the courage of life in the face of relentless cold, the ingenuity that shapes survival, and the silent, persistent intelligence that might have moved quietly across frozen plains. For every mammoth that trudged through snow, for every river frozen in mid-flow, there is a possibility, a question that lingers like smoke in the wind of beings who existed, adapted, and perhaps disappeared, leaving only whispers for those willing to listen. As we imagine these Ice Age civilizations or phenomena, we are drawn into a paradox. The more fragile life seems, the more remarkable its persistence. The landscape is both eraser and preserver, and the line between memory and oblivion blurs. What we see, what we can reconstruct, is only a shadow of what once was, and yet, that shadow is enough to inspire awe, to hint at mysteries still hidden beneath ice and time. In these frozen corridors of imagination, we begin to understand the interplay of fragility and resilience, of fleeting brilliance against the vast canvas of the Earth. And as the Ice Age stretches across millennia, we realize that every moment of survival, every spark of awareness, every subtle gesture of intelligence is both extraordinary and ephemeral, leaving echoes that invite reflection but resist finality. In the frozen expanses of the Ice Age, memory is a fragile thing. Every step, every hut built from snow or wood, every fire tended and every song sung, all are subject to the relentless passage of time, eroded, swallowed, and often forgotten. Glaciers, creeping slowly yet inevitably, grind landscapes into anonymity, reshaping valleys, crushing forests, and polishing stones until their history is hidden beneath layers of ice. Rivers, once alive with movement and life, can be diverted, frozen solid, or erased by the slow, patient hand of the cold. The evidence of life is fragile because the earth itself is not still. It is a restless archivist, preserving some, erasing most. Indifferent to human desire for permanence, organic materials, wood, leather, plant fibers, and bone, rarely survive the millennia. Even stone tools, which endure far longer, can be buried, shifted, or fragmented beyond recognition. A footprint in snow or soft mud, an ephemeral carving on bark, a fleeting arrangement of stones. These traces vanish as easily as they are made, and yet the silence of absence carries its own story, whispering through layers of sediment, ice cores, and permafrost. Each gap in the record, each missing artifact, tells of fragility, mortality, and the inexorable passage of time. Archaeologists and geologists who attempt to reconstruct this frozen past face a paradox. Evidence exists, yet is obscured. Patterns emerge, yet are incomplete. Ice cores offer glimpses of atmospheric composition. Pollen grains reveal the faint outlines of forests, and frozen bones hint at the creatures that once roamed these lands. But for every clue, countless more vanish unnoticed, leaving only a fragment of the full story. The earth records both presence and absence, yet it does so in a language subtle, delicate, and easily misread. Even when something survives, interpretation is a delicate act. A blackened layer in sediment could signify fire, human activity, or simply a natural anomaly. A cluster of bones may speak of predation, accident, or ritual. Without context, these remnants remain ambiguous, their meaning a riddle for those who come later. And what of patterns too subtle to notice, too organic to fossilize, too fleeting to endure? Perhaps the most profound traces of life are those that leave no tangible mark, existing instead in behavior, in ecosystems subtly shifted, in species coexisting in ways shaped by unseen hands. This fragility of memory is a meditation on impermanence. Life, no matter how intense, no matter how intelligent or creative, is vulnerable to erasure. Civilizations can rise and vanish, leaving only whispers for those willing to listen. A carefully arranged series of stones might be obliterated by a shifting glacier. A painted cave wall could crumble into dust. A song carried through generations might fade with the passing of time. And yet, in this absence, there is a form of quiet beauty, a reminder that existence is both fleeting and miraculous, a delicate spark in the vast expanse of deep time. In contemplating these losses, we are drawn to humility. The Ice Age was not a stage designed for permanence. It was a theater of transience. Every creature, every human or pre-human actor, played a role that would soon vanish, leaving traces too subtle for easy recognition. And yet, that very ephemerality invites wonder, for in imagining what has been lost, we glimpse the extraordinary resilience and ingenuity of life, that dared to thrive in conditions so harsh that survival itself was an achievement. Perhaps the silence of the Ice Age is its own record, a quiet testament to life that existed, adapted, and sometimes disappeared without fanfare. The earth remembers in whispers, in the subtle alignment of sediments, in the chemical signatures frozen in ice, in the skeletons of creatures preserved just long enough to speak of a time long past. Each absent piece reminds us of the vastness of deep time, the patience of nature, and the delicate balance between endurance and erasure. As we peer through the veil of snow and stone, tracing patterns that might hint at life, we confront the limits of recognition. To know the past fully may be impossible, yet the act of seeking, of imagining, of listening to the subtle signs left behind, is itself a form of engagement, a dialogue between the living and those who have vanished. It is here, in this fragile interplay of memory and evidence, that the story of the Ice Age becomes both a study of loss and an invitation to wonder. In the vast sweep of Ice Age time, loss is both inevitable and profound. Civilizations, species, and even entire landscapes can vanish, leaving only fragments for the patient observer to piece together. And yet, in contemplating disappearance, there is a peculiar kind of presence, a legacy not of monuments or artifacts, but of memory, imagination, and the quiet truths whispered by the earth itself. What does it mean to leave a mark on a world so vast, so indifferent, and so patient? What does survival matter when every triumph is fleeting in the scale of deep time? Perhaps the most humbling realization is that intelligence, creativity, and culture are delicate. The beings of the Ice Age, humans, pre-humans, or creatures we can barely imagine, may have built, hunted, loved, and dreamed in ways lost to us. Their knowledge may have been immense, yet transient, bound to bodies, voices, and fragile dwellings. And now, millennia later, we are left to wonder, did they ponder the same questions about existence, about meaning, about the impermanence of all things that we do today? In reflecting on this fragility, we glimpse a mirror of our own civilization. How much of what we create will endure? How many of our cities, our technologies, our stories will survive the relentless forces of time, climate, and entropy? The Ice Age reminds us that culture is a temporary bloom, a fleeting flourish in the vast garden of deep time. Even the most durable achievements, the carvings on stone, the patterns in the soil, the traces of hearts, may eventually vanish, leaving only whispers for those who follow. Yet, loss is not merely absence. It is also a catalyst for reflection. In imagining what has vanished, we expand our sense of connection across time. We sense the persistence of life and consciousness, even if fleeting, and recognize that our own existence is part of a much larger tapestry. The creatures that walked frozen plains, the humans who hunted or foraged, the patterns of ecosystems that have since shifted, all are part of a lineage, a continuum, a network of experiences that extends far beyond our perception. There is a profound humility embedded in this contemplation. To acknowledge the fragility of knowledge is to acknowledge the limits of our understanding, the impossibility of capturing the full story of life, even in the recent past. And yet, within this humility lies a kind of liberation. We are freed to imagine, to speculate, and to marvel at the possibilities that remain hidden. The Ice Age, in its silence, invites us to recognize that the most lasting legacies are not always tangible. They may reside in concepts, in adaptations, in behaviors that ripple through generations unseen. Perhaps what endures is not the physical, but the conceptual. The very idea that a civilization could rise and fall beneath glaciers, that life could adapt in ingenious ways to relentless cold, that intelligence can bloom and vanish without leaving a clear trace. These notions become a legacy in themselves. They stretch across time, influencing imagination, philosophy, and our understanding of the fragile nature of being. They remind us that history is not only a record of what survives, but also a meditation on what does not. And so, the Ice Age teaches us that loss and legacy are intertwined. To recognize the absence of evidence is not to deny existence. It is to honor it in a subtler, more contemplative manner. Life's triumphs may fade, yet their echoes persist in the quiet structures of memory, the rhythms of nature, and the reflective minds of those who ponder them. In this way, loss becomes a form of continuity, a bridge between what was and what we now imagine. As we look across frozen landscapes, tracing the faint outlines of what may have existed, we are invited to consider our place in the cycle of creation and disappearance. Every flake of snow, every frozen river, every skeletal fragment is a testament to the ephemeral beauty of life and the enduring power of imagination. It is a reminder that to leave a legacy is not always to leave a monument, but sometimes to leave a question, a story, a space for reflection, a gentle imprint on the consciousness of those who follow. In contemplating the Ice Age, we are drawn into the quiet rhythm of time itself. The glaciers, the winds, the subtle shifts in terrain all speak of endurance and impermanence alike. And within this rhythm, we recognize a profound truth, that the essence of existence may not lie in permanence, but in the capacity to matter, however briefly, and to inspire reflection long after the physical traces have vanished. If we turn our gaze from the distant Ice Age to the present, we begin to see echoes of fragility and impermanence mirrored in ourselves. Imagine, for a moment, how our civilization might appear to observers millions of years from now, if any sentient life or even synthetic intelligence were to study the Earth long after we are gone. Would they find towering cities, glittering lights, or instead just chemical traces, subtle distortions in soil, faint emissions of plastics and radiation? The answer is both haunting and humbling. Time is patient, but it does not preserve everything. Just as glaciers erased vast swaths of Ice Age landscapes, the slow churn of Earth's processes will eventually obscure much of what we consider permanent. Mountains erode, rivers shift, forests rise and fall. Even our greatest constructions of concrete, steel, glass, may dissolve, crumble, and blend with the soil. And yet, our influence will not vanish entirely. A spike of carbon here, a trace of microplastic there, a faint layer of synthetic compounds and sediment. These subtle signals will testify, in whispers, to our presence. Future geologists, far removed from our era, may interpret these anomalies in ways we cannot predict. Perhaps they will see civilization, or perhaps they will see only curious deviations in a vast natural record, misread as the work of strange, unknown forces. In this reflection, the Ice Age becomes a mirror. Just as those distant beings adapted, thrived, and vanished beneath glaciers, so too are we subject to the same laws of fragility and impermanence. Our technologies and our cultures, though immense by our standards, are temporary. A species can rise, flourish, and disappear with astonishing speed when measured against the expanse of geologic time. And in that disappearance, there is both vulnerability and grace, a reminder that intelligence is not a crown of inevitability, but a fleeting spark that must continually adapt or risk fading. Consider the markers of our existence: the chemicals in the oceans, altered by industrial activity, the remnants of agriculture etched into soil profiles, the faint radiation from centuries of energy use. Even the animals we've shaped, the forests we've cleared or cultivated, are threads of influence that might outlast the civilizations themselves. Yet, all of these signals are subtle, requiring careful interpretation. Much like ice cores and sediment layers from the Ice Age revealed the rhythms of long-lost worlds, this parallel invites introspection. How does our awareness of deep time shape our understanding of impact, legacy, and responsibility? Just as we study Ice Age survival strategies, the delicate balance between resilience and extinction, we might also contemplate our own place in a lineage that stretches both backward and forward across millennia. In the vast ledger of Earth's history, humanity is both a momentary flourish and a potential harbinger of lasting change. The perspective of future observers reminds us that our actions, our choices, and even our errors will be written, not in stone or metal alone, but in subtle shifts that reverberate through the biosphere. And yet, in imagining this distant perspective, we glimpse not only our fragility, but our resilience. The Ice Age teaches us that life, in its myriad forms, persists and adapts in ways that are often invisible, subtle, and profound. The creatures that survived the cold, the humans who navigated frozen plains, the delicate ecosystems that endured, all reveal the capacity of life to persist, even in extreme circumstances. Our own species, too, is an experiment in resilience, leaving traces that may endure far beyond our recognition, whether through DNA, altered landscapes, or the artifacts we scarcely realize we are creating today. This reflection bridges past and future. By understanding the impermanence of Ice Age civilizations, we come to see our own transience in a clearer light. By acknowledging the subtlety of our potential legacy, we cultivate a deeper sense of care, curiosity, and humility, and perhaps, in contemplating these parallels, we come closer to grasping the profound continuity of life, a continuity that transcends individual species, civilizations, and even epochs. We are part of an ongoing conversation between time, matter, and consciousness. The Ice Age whispers its lessons through glaciers and bones. The present whispers back, reminding us that every act, no matter how small, ripples across the deep canvas of Earth. And in imagining our distant future, we recognize that survival, memory, and legacy are not given. They are earned through adaptation, awareness, and the mindful stewardship of our planet. Here, in this intersection of past and future, we encounter a humbling truth. Existence is fleeting, yet it is profoundly meaningful. Our civilization, like the Ice Age before it, is a transient bloom in the relentless rhythm of Earth. And in this realization, we find both awe and responsibility, a reminder that intelligence is not merely a claim to permanence, but a delicate opportunity to leave echoes, however faint, in the story of the world. As we drift from the tangible echoes of human civilization into the realm of speculation, we begin to wonder what legacies truly endure, not the monuments carved in stone, not the artifacts polished by time, but subtler traces, shifts in ecosystems, alterations in genomes, behaviors embedded in animal lineages, the quiet reshaping of rivers, and the whispers of climate patterns. Perhaps the most profound marks of intelligence are not built to be seen, but to be felt, concepts and structures hidden in plain sight, waiting for a mind attuned enough to recognize them. Could there have been civilizations or intelligences whose existence is imperceptible to us, whose architecture was organic, ephemeral, or intentionally subtle? Imagine beings whose works were integrated into the rhythms of the Earth itself, whose cities were living forests, whose energy was drawn from wind and ice, whose knowledge resided not in texts or tools, but in the relationships between species, the flow of water, the migration of animals. Perhaps they left no ruins, no medals, no inscriptions, but instead encoded their understanding in the very systems that support life, so that their legacy became inseparable from the natural world. In this reflection, we confront a humbling possibility. Intelligence does not have to announce itself to endure. It might bloom briefly, leaving faint impressions on the fabric of the world, only to dissolve and blend, unrecognized, into the ongoing cycle of life. Every glacier that sculpts the land, every river that shifts course, every subtle change in the climate or biosphere could carry whispers of past awareness. These are patterns that do not scream for attention, yet they are no less real for their quiet subtlety. We can also imagine knowledge surviving in unexpected forms. Perhaps DNA carries echoes of decisions, adaptations, or interactions long past. Perhaps the behaviors of species, the arrangements of ecological networks, or even the chemical traces in sediment are fragments of a story we are only beginning to learn to read. Civilization need not be defined by stone and metal alone. It can exist in complexity, in balance, in systems that require patience and observation to understand. And in considering this, we come to a philosophical reflection. The absence of visible evidence does not preclude the presence of meaning. The universe may teem with consciousness that leaves no trace obvious to us. What if intelligence is less a monument and more a quiet shaping of reality, subtle, fleeting, woven into the currents of life itself? In such a frame, our search for predecessors is not a hunt for ruins, but a meditation on possibility, an acknowledgement of the unseen, a recognition that the story of awareness is broader and stranger than our eyes alone can perceive. This speculative closure invites us to reconsider our own assumptions. How do we define civilization? How do we measure legacy? Perhaps the most enduring artifacts are not the grand, but the delicate, the intricate, the imperceptible. Perhaps the lessons of the Ice Age, its resilience, its adaptation, its vanishing and reemergence, mirror the very way intelligence can exist, ephemeral, patient, profound, yet often invisible. And as we let these thoughts settle, a quiet wonder emerges. For every life that has thrived and vanished, for every spark of awareness that has flickered in the vastness of time, There is a trace, faint, diffuse, yet undeniably present. It may not announce itself. It may not tell us a story we can fully comprehend, but it whispers of continuity, possibility, and the enduring mystery of life. Perhaps we are part of that whisper, and perhaps the universe itself is alive with minds and awareness, woven into layers of ice, stone, water, and wind. In contemplating this, we come to an open-ended realization. Understanding the past is not simply about recovering artifacts. It is about expanding perception. It is about learning to notice subtleties, to read absences, to embrace questions that may never have answers. Intelligence, in its most profound form, might exist where we least expect it, in patterns, in relationships, in processes that outlast individual beings and civilizations. And in that awareness, we are invited to imagine, to wonder, and to respect the silent, hidden, and enduring traces of consciousness across the eons. And so, as our journey through the Ice Age draws to a close, we find ourselves not at an ending, but at a gentle pause. The glaciers continue their slow, deliberate advance and retreat, imperceptible yet relentless. Rivers, carved and recarved over millennia, continue to wind through valleys shaped by time and ice. The wind whispers through frozen forests, carrying the faint, cold scent of ancient snow, and the auroras shimmer quietly across a darkened sky, painting ephemeral strokes of light that vanish almost as soon as they appear. In this vastness, we begin to understand the quiet patience of the earth. It does not hurry. It does not demand attention. It endures, reshapes, and reclaims, folding the past into its layers with care and precision. Every footprint, every signal, every flicker of life is absorbed into this living, breathing system, where beginnings and endings blur, where presence and absence intertwine. And perhaps that is the true lesson of the Ice Age, that life, intelligence, and civilization are both fragile and tenacious, that existence is not measured by monuments alone, but by the echoes left in patterns, systems, and subtle transformations, that even when all seems lost, even when glaciers have erased every mark we can see, the world carries memory, not always ours to read, not always in forms we recognize, but persistent nonetheless. We, too, are part of this continuum. Every thought, every choice, every small act of care or curiosity is a thread in the vast tapestry of existence. We stand on a momentary ridge of time, looking backward into frozen landscapes and forward into possibilities yet unseen. We are witnesses, participants, and perhaps, for a fleeting moment, stewards of what endures. As night falls and the earth settles into its quiet rhythms, we may feel a deep connection to those who have come before, whether human, pre-human, or the mysterious forms of intelligence that may have blossomed and faded unnoticed. Their presence lingers in patterns we cannot always decipher, in the subtle language of ice, stone, and life, and perhaps, in the stillness of contemplation, we sense their silent company, not as answers, but as companions in thought, fellow travelers through time and possibility. So rest now, not in the sense of surrender, but in the understanding that the world continues, vast and intricate, beyond the reach of certainty. Allow the quiet to fill your mind as the glaciers of thought recede and advance, as your own consciousness drifts in rhythm with the slow pulse of the planet. The past, the present, and the future overlap here, in a space where questions are more vital than answers, and curiosity is the bridge across time. Close your eyes, listen to the whispers of the ice and wind, feel the subtle heartbeat of earth beneath your thoughts. Imagine the long sweep of history, the unseen minds, the lives lived in shadow and snow. You are part of that unfolding story, momentary yet eternal in the tapestry of awareness. And perhaps, somewhere in the quiet folds of this world, the echoes of the Ice Age meet your own, and together, they drift softly into the unknown. Sleep. Now, as a traveler through time, cradled in the patience of the earth, accompanied by mysteries too vast to name, too gentle to disturb, and too profound to ever fully understand. And in that sleep, you carry forward the wonder, the reflection, and the quiet poetry of existence itself. And so we return to the quiet, the gentle pulse of a world in motion. Glaciers melt slowly, rivers carve their courses, and life persists in forms both visible and hidden. The ice age is gone, yet its memory lingers in snowdrifts, fossils, and the subtle rhythms of the earth. Perhaps the beings who wandered its frozen plains watch, in some sense, through our curiosity, our questions, our imaginations. Perhaps their story is not lost, but transformed, woven into the tapestry of time itself. Close your eyes now. Let the vast, frozen expanse stretch across your mind. Let the wind of the ice age brush your cheeks. Listen to the whisper of glaciers, the murmur of rivers, the quiet heartbeat of the earth. Sleep, time traveler, sleep, and dream of a world that was both harsh and wondrous, fleeting yet eternal. The night stretches onward. Stars shimmer faintly above, casting their soft light on valleys, mountains, and plains alike. And in that gentle illumination, we realize that time, in all its immensity, is both fleeting and infinite. Every moment, every breath, every step leaves echoes, sometimes visible, sometimes hidden, in the vast, patient canvas of existence. Rest now, not because the journey is complete, but because the questions, the wonder, and the awe are companions that linger softly, carrying us through sleep, into tomorrow, and into the unknown expanse of time itself. The earth keeps turning, silently, beyond our hours and days, beyond our memory. Ice sheets retreat and advance in patterns too vast for a single lifetime to perceive. Glaciers whispering secrets older than any written word, carrying stories we may never know. Every rock, every river bend, every frozen forest is a verse in a poem that has no end, no author, only the slow rhythm of time. And in that rhythm, the echoes of the past linger. Perhaps life has stirred in hidden corners, unseen by eyes that demand proof. Perhaps minds have flickered, aware and curious, and then faded into the soft white hush of the world. These echoes are not loud, they are subtle, like a scent carried on a winter wind or a shadow cast by a mountain in the low sun. We may pass over them unknowingly, yet they shape the land, the water, the air quietly, persistently, unclaimed by history. Consider the delicate patterns left behind. A twisted tree frozen in place, a fossilized track in the mud, the trace of a river that no longer flows. These are fragments, hints, whispers. They do not speak in clear language, yet they speak nonetheless. They ask us to listen, to wonder, to remember that our story is part of a far vaster one in which beginnings and endings blur, and life itself is a fleeting flicker within a much greater night. And perhaps we are also part of this echo, the thoughts we carry, the questions we ask, the care with which we move across the earth. All these ripple forward in ways we cannot measure. The plastic we leave, the carbon we emit, the forests we cut or protect, these, too, may be the faint signatures that distant minds or distant selves will one day encounter. What will they think of us? What will they understand? Will they see civilization or chaos, intelligence or simple survival? Or will our presence have faded into the background, a subtle disturbance that only the patient earth can discern? The timeless echo reminds us of humility, not as surrender, but as recognition. We are part of a continuum, not the peak of a pyramid, but a single note in an immense, ongoing symphony. Each life, each mind, each fleeting spark of awareness is both unique and small, significant and ephemeral. And yet, the very act of perceiving, of contemplating, of reaching out into the past and future, is a thread that connects us to all that has been and all that may yet be. So let us sit quietly in the shadow of ice and stone, rivers and wind, stars above and the slow turn of the planet beneath us. Let us feel the continuity of time and the soft presence of those who came before, creatures, beings, perhaps intelligences we will never know, folded into the earth itself. Let us be conscious of the fragility and persistence of life, aware that even in absence, there is resonance. And as you close your eyes, drift into the stillness. Let your thoughts wander along the corridors of forgotten forests, across frozen plains, beneath roars that dance like whispers of the cosmos. Know that the earth holds these echoes, cradles them, lets them pass into the silence of deep time. Perhaps, somewhere, they meet you as you dream, neither judgment nor answer, only company, a subtle reminder that consciousness is a fleeting, beautiful bloom, and yet it leaves traces, soft and lasting, in the mind of the universe itself. Rest now, gentle traveler of time. The glaciers will continue their slow march. Rivers will carve their paths. Winds will carry stories of snow and stone. And you, in this brief moment, are a witness, a participant, a listener to the timeless echo. Sleep, and let the earth keep its quiet, ancient vigil, while you drift through the infinite night.